The series begins with a young man named Yoon Hyun-woo, who was working in a large corporation that operated in almost all industrial sectors in South Korea. Despite the fact that Hyun-woo was only a high school graduate, he was a highly competent worker and one of the workers most needed by his corporation. Unfortunately, despite the fact that Hyun-woo had dedicated his time and effort to his corporation, the family that ran the corporation did not respect him. Instead, they took advantage of Hyun-woo and treated him like a servant, frequently assigning Hyun-woo with tasks that were not supposed to be done by him as the corporation's secretary, such as that afternoon when one of the conglomerate family's members ordered Hyun-woo to clean his toilet. The Sunyoung Corporation was the name of the large corporation where Hyun-woo worked. The Sunyoung Corporation was founded by Jin Young-kol, who died a long time ago. After Jin Young-kol died, the Sunyoung Corporation was run and managed by Jin Young-kol's children, children-in-law, and grandchildren. Jin Young-kol's eldest son, Ji Young-ki, was the chief executive officer. Ji Young-ki's son, Ji Song-jun, was the next chief executive officer. Jin Young-kol's second son, Ji Deong-ki, was the chief operating officer, and Jin Young-kol's third child, Ji Hwang-yang, was also an executive with significant influence in that corporation. There was also Jin Young-kol's fourth son, Ji Yoon-ki, but unlike his sister and brothers, Ji Yoon-ki chose to work as an ordinary man instead of running and managing the corporation. One day, the police suspected the Sunyoung Corporation of tax evasion, so they dispatched a highly competent attorney named Min Young to investigate the alleged tax evasion committed by the Sunyoung Corporation. But, apparently, Hyun-woo had secured all of the evidence that the attorney Min Young was looking for and had hidden it in a secret room, leaving the attorney Min Young helpless because she had failed to find any evidence of tax evasion. Despite the fact that Hyun-woo had saved the corporation by hiding the evidences, the Sunyoung conglomerate family still did not respect him. They continued to ignore Hyun-woo as if what Hyun-woo had just done to save their corporation was nothing to them. It was only Jin Young-kol's fourth son, Ji Yoon-ki, who approached and appreciated Hyun-woo for what he had done. He thanked Hyun-woo for saving their corporation. One day, Hyun-woo's subordinate informed him that he had discovered a file containing evidence of tax evasion committed by a member of the Sunyoung conglomerate family. Based on that evidence, Hyun-woo discovered that the Sunyoung Corporation had evaded a large amount of tax liabilities. As a result, he immediately reported it to Mr. Kim, the director of finance. But when Mr. Kim received that report, he warned Hyun-woo not to interfere with the Sunyoung conglomerate family's business, and he also destroyed the evidence file that Hyun-woo had given him. Hyun-woo still had no idea what was going on, so he secretly reported the evidence file to Song-jun, who was the son of the Sunyoung Corporation's CEO and the next CEO. Song-jun fired Mr. Kim immediately after learning about the tax evasion. He felt betrayed by the man he had trusted all this time. He then appointed Hyun-woo to become the next director of finance to replace Mr. Kim. He assigned Hyun-woo to recover the money embezzled in tax evasion, which was stored in an international bank in Turkey. After that, Hyun-woo flew to Turkey to visit the international bank that held the stolen money, and he was able to retrieve the money that had been embezzled in that tax evasion. But apparently, a member of the Sunyoung conglomerate family had ordered some people to spy on and target Hyun-woo, because he didn't want the Sunyoung corporate to have that money back. Finally, the hitman hired by the Sunyoung conglomerate family managed to capture Hyun-woo, bring him to a cliff, and murder him there. Hyun-woo was surprised when he saw the person who hired the hitman, who turned out to be his subordinate who gave him the evidence file. As soon as he arrived, he took the money that Hyun-woo had taken back from the bank. Hyun-woo realized that he had been betrayed by the Sunyoung conglomerate family, but he didn't understand why the Sunyoung conglomerate family mistreated him in this manner. But then a miracle occurred. Hyun-woo's consciousness was trapped inside of a stranger's body. At first, Hyun-woo was perplexed, believing that he had died as a result of being murdered by the Sunyoung conglomerate family. But then Hyun-woo realized that he had traveled back in time and was trapped inside of a boy's body, apparently the son of Jin Young-kol's fourth son. Following that, Hyun-woo met all members of the Sunyoung conglomerate family, who all appeared to be very young at the time, and Hyun-woo suspected that one of them was the person who had murdered him in the future. Jin Young-kol arrived not long after. He was still the chief executive officer of the Sunyoung Corporation at the time. Hyun-woo was surprised that he could finally meet Jin Young-kol. He was amazed by his presence. He thought Jin Young-kol was a charismatic and authoritative leader. He had been admiring Jin Young-kol all this time. He had even read a biography book about Jin Young-kol in the future. Jin Young-kol was tough on his children. He, Jin Yoon-ki, and Hyun-woo, who was trapped inside Jin Yoon-ki's son Deo-jun, were ignored and excluded from the Sunyoung conglomerate family as a result of Jin Yoon-ki's decision. but because Hyun-woo was determined to exact revenge on the Soon-young conglomerate family, he planned to ingratiate himself with Jin Young-kol by using Deo-jun's body. He wanted to be trusted by Jin Young-kol to run the corporation. Deo-jun attempted to befriend his grandfather Jin Young-kol, but Jin Young-kol ignored him. Jin Young-kol disliked him because he was Jin Yoon-ki's son. Jin Young-kol no longer considered his fourth son Jin Yoon-ki to be his son after Jin Yoon-ki decided to leave the Soon-young corporation. But, using his knowledge of the future, Hyun-woo, who was trapped inside Deo-jun's body, managed to persuade Jin Young-kol about who the Soon-young corporation would support in the next presidential election. The next elected president was important for the Soon-young corporation because he could help the company take control of the business in South Korea. The Soon-young conglomerate family laughed at him right away because Deo-jun didn't have any proof, and they didn't believe what Deo-jun said, especially given that the presidential candidate mentioned by Deo-jun wasn't qualified to be president. But not long after that, the news on television confirmed what Deo-jun had said. Everyone, including Jin Young-kol, was surprised, and they became intrigued by Deo-jun. Jin Young-kol summoned Deo-jun to his room and inquired as to how Deo-jun learned about the next elected president. Deo-jun responded that the presidential election was similar to the election for class president. Jin Young-kol was impressed by Deo-jun's simple answer, and he began to trust him. He then asked Deo-jun a special question, asking Deo-jun how a little shrimp could defeat a giant whale, and Deo-jun didn't say anything because he didn't know the answer. Deo-jun realized at home that Jin Young-kol's question had something to do with Jin Young-kol's plan. Jin Young-kol planned to buy a conductor manufacturing company, but he was concerned that the owner would sell it to a giant company in the same industrial sector instead. Deo-jun attempted to call Jin Young-kol to give him his response, but when he called, Jin Young-kol was attending a meeting in Baghdad. Deo-jun realized that another significant incident was about to occur. The airplane that Jin Young-kol used to return to South Korea was about to explode, and Jin Young-kol was going to die as a result of the accident. As soon as Deo-jun realized this, he tried to call his grandfather, but no one answered. He then went to Jin Young-kol's house, called the secretary Kim, and told him to write down his answer to the little shrimp question. He also told Jin Young-kol that his plan to buy the conductor manufacturing company would be realized soon. What Deo-jun predicted earlier came true. The plane Jin Young-kol used to return to South Korea exploded. When the Soon-young conglomerate family heard the news, they were shocked, and they wanted to know if Jin Young-kol died as a result of the accident. But then Jin Young-kol appeared in that location, and everyone was surprised to see him there, wondering how Jin Young-kol survived the accident. Jin Young-kol didn't tell anyone that he survived because of Deo-jun's message, which was an answer to his little shrimp question. Jin Young-kol initially questioned his plan to acquire the conductor manufacturing company, but after receiving and reading Deo-jun's response, he was determined to carry out his plan. As a result, he changed his schedule to return to South Korea earlier because the owner of the conductor manufacturing company was about to close his offer, and as a result, he avoided the airplane accident. The next day, Deo-jun came to Jin Young-kol's room. In that room, Jin Young-kol asked Deo-jun how a little boy like him could find out about big incidents that were going to happen, even suspecting that Deo-jun came from the future. Deo-jun immediately denied that suspicion, saying that he just knew how Jin Young-kol really felt, and because of that, he could predict what was going to happen. Jin Young-kol offered Deo-jun money as a reward for. Then, Deo-jun asked Jin Young-kol for something else, and in exchange, he promised to give Jin Young-kol something that Jin Young-kol didn't have and couldn't buy with money, which was a letter of acceptance to South Korea's most prestigious university, Seoul National University. Jin Young-kol had hoped that his children and grandchildren would be admitted to that university, but none of them were able to realize his dream. Deo-jun also requested that Jin Young-kol accept his family into the Soon-young conglomerate family. When Jin Young-kol changed his mind because of a little boy named Do-jun, the Soon-young conglomerate family was perplexed. After a few years, Deo-jun finally fulfilled his grandfather's promise by being admitted to Seoul National University. He even became the youngest Seoul National University student to achieve the highest score in his university, and he became the center of attention as a result of his achievement. The plot of land that he requested back then turned out to be the most sought-after area for people to build their homes, and Do-jun made a large profit from that plot of land business, becoming a millionaire at such a young age. The Soon-young conglomerate family wondered why Do-jun was always lucky. They were concerned that Jin Young-kol would revoke his will, which stated that his eldest grandson Sung-jun would be the next company president. They were concerned that Jin Young-kol would instead hand over the company to Do-jun. Du Jun reportedly also assisted his father in his film business, suggesting that his father invest in films that were always shown on TV during holiday sessions, such as Home Alone, and as a result, Du Jun was invited to a film festival in New York. When Du Jun was strolling around town, he came across the attorney Seo Min-young, who appeared to be very young at the time. Du Jun met an investor in the US. He was interested in what he said. That investor said that the Titanic film would be in demand in the market. Du Jun knew that what he said was going to happen. That investor was called Mr. O. He ran a business that operated in the investment industry. Du Jun planned to approach and work with Mr. O. Mr. O initially doubted Du Jun because he was still very young. He also believed that Du Jun lacked experience or competence in the investment business. However, Du Jun managed to persuade Mr. O by correctly predicting the winner of a chess competition in which the world chess champion competed against a computer. Du Jun predicted that the world chess champion would be defeated by the computer. However, the computer was still considered. Du Jun reportedly acquired the Hando Steel because he wanted to take a further step toward taking over the Sunyang Corporation. He was aware that acquiring the Hando Steel was extremely risky, but he persisted because he wanted to exact revenge on the Sunyang conglomerate family as soon as possible. Ji Yong-ki directed his subordinates to investigate the investors who were successful in acquiring Hando Steel, Mr. O and Du Jun. The next day, Jin Yong-kol and his children were watching a car racing, and Du Jun joined them. One of the cars used by the race car drivers in that car racing was made by the Sunyang Corporation. Suddenly, the race car from the Sunyang Corporation began to overheat, but Ji Yong-ki forced the race car driver to continue driving until he reached the finish line, and as a result, the race car driver from the Sunyang Corporation was killed. Du Jun knew where Jin Yong-kol was going to calm himself down because he had read a biography book about Jin Yong-kol in the future, so he decided to go to where Jin Yong-kol was trying to calm himself down, which was a building owned by the Sunyang Corporation, and there were many expensive classic cars owned by Jin Yong-kol in that building. When Du Jun arrived, he noticed Jin Yong-kol inspecting one of his classic cars. He approached Jin Yong-kol and told him that he knew how the Sunyang Corporation was founded. He said that Jin Yong-kol only had 2 trucks that he used to deliver rice back then, but as time passed, Jin Yong-kol managed to buy more trucks until he had a dozen trucks and founded the Sunyang Transportation. Since then, Jin Yong-kol was interested in machinery and fuel industry. Jin Yong-kol and Du Jun decided to leave after finishing their conversation because the Sunyang Corporation's new car launching event was approaching. Not long after that, Ji Yong-ki learned that the Daewon Corporation intended to acquire the Hando Steel for a higher price than Mr. O and Du Jun had previously offered. Because he didn't want to disappoint his father again, he intended to acquire the Hando Steel for a higher price than their rival company offered, and he didn't care if he had to use his father and money laws to do so. Jin Yong-kol had apparently ordered his subordinates to spy on Mr. O and Du Jun, and he had also listened to Mr. O and Du Jun's conversation through the eavesdropping device that his subordinates had placed inside of a potted flower. He believed Mr. O and Du Jun were the people behind the company that had acquired the Hando Steel after seeing those pictures and listening to that conversation. He believed Du Jun was behind the power shares because he remembered Du Jun going to a film festival in New York with his father, and during that festival, Du Jun and Mr. O made an agreement. Following that, Jin Yong-kol directed his subordinates to approach Mr. O and request that he meet with him in his room. Jin Yong-kol directly asked Mr. O if Du Jun had invested in the power shares to acquire the Hando Steel, to which Mr. O replied that Du Jun did not use the money that he had invested in the power shares to acquire the Hando Steel, but instead used the money that he had invested there to purchase an e-commerce company called Cadabra. Then, Mr. O informed Jin Yong-kol that a member of the Sunyang conglomerate family had assisted the Daewon company in acquiring the Hando Steel by sending them money. Jin Yong-kol was taken aback when he heard this. Apparently, Jin Yong-kol's second son Ji Deong-ki was a member of the Sunyang conglomerate family who assisted the Daewon company in acquiring the Hando Steel. When Jin Yong-kol confronted Ji Deong-ki about it, Ji Deong-ki explained that he did it for the Sunyang Corporation. The Sunyang Corporation eventually defeated their rival company, the Daewon company, in acquiring the Hando Steel despite having to spend a large amount of money. At the same time, Mr. O and Du Jun were happy because their plan worked well. They managed to get Ji Deong-ki to send money to the Daewon company, which forced Ji Deong-ki to spend a lot of money to acquire the Hando Steel. They also realized that the Sunyang Corporation was secretly listening to their conversation at the hotel at the time, which Du Jun used to trick the Sunyang Corporation and Jin Yong-kol. Then he suggested that Mr. O invest in a company that was about to go bankrupt due to the monetary crisis, which was called the Ajin Motors. Mr. O immediately refused Du Jun's suggestion because the Ajin Motors was heavily in debt, but Du Jun persisted in urging him to invest in the Ajin Motors. Apparently, Jin Young-kol had the same plan as Do Jun. He planned to acquire or invest in the Ajin Motors because he wanted to improve the Sunyang Corporation's subordinate company, which was the Sunyang Motors. Unfortunately, even though Jin Young-kol was determined to acquire the Ajin Motors, the Sunyang Corporation found difficulty doing so due to the monetary crisis. At the same time, Jin Young-kol's eldest grandson Sung-jun, who was to be the next president of the Sunyang Corporation, had returned to South Korea after spending several years studying abroad, and his father's secretary met him at the airport. Sung-jun also met a woman who would be his future wife, Hyun-min, who was the daughter of the owner of a media company. Jin Young-kol was glad to see Sung-jun again, because the Sunyang Corporation needed a competent young thinker like Sung-jun at this time. Jin Young-kol told Sung-jun that he was going to marry Hyun-min, a woman he met at the airport, and it seemed like Sung-jun didn't mind. Following that, Jin Young-kol's subordinate informed Jin Young-kol that the Ajin Motors that Jin Young-kol intended to acquire had been acquired by a new corporation called the Miracle Investment. Jin Young-kol discovered that Mr. Oh was the person who ran and managed the Miracle Investment, and Mr. Oh had previously prevented the Sunyang Corporation from acquiring the Hando Steel. At the same time, the Ajin Motors finally reached an agreement with Do Jun's corporation. The owner of the Ajin Motors sold his company to Do Jun because Do Jun agreed to accept his request. He requested that all workers who worked in the Ajin Motors remain in that company, and he also requested that Do Jun not replace the staff managers there. Apparently, Do Jun accepted the Ajin Motors request because he wanted to save his parents. His father was a worker at the Ajin Motors, and he knew that all workers at the Ajin Motors, including his father, were going to be fired in the future, and when his mother saw the news on TV, she had a heart attack and died immediately. Unfortunately, defeating a person like Jin Young-kol was not easy. With his strong influence, colleagues, and relations, Jin Young-kol managed to ruin Mr. Oh and Do Jun's plan to acquire the Ajin Motors. He also caused Mr. Oh and Do Jun to fight. Mr. Oh disagreed with Do Jun's decision to keep the Ajin Motors as workers in their company, believing that it would cost them a large amount of money, but Do Jun insisted on sticking to his plan. Suddenly, Do Jun had an idea. He discovered a way to invest in the Ajin Motors while keeping the Ajin Motors workers in their company. He planned to make an agreement with the Sunyang Corporation. Do Jun discovered that the Sunyang Corporation didn't have enough money to acquire the Ajin Motors. As a result, he planned to fund the Sunyang Corporation so they could acquire the Ajin Motors. As a return, he asked the Sunyang, but, unfortunately, Do Jun's strategy failed to save his mother from death. Do Jun wondered why this could happen. Apparently, he found out that his mother didn't die because of a heart attack when she saw news about the dismissal in the Ajin Motors. His mother died because she committed suicide. Her mother became frustrated because the Sunyang Corporation subordinate company that she had invested in was going bankrupt. Do Jun discovered that the Sunyang Corporation subordinate company that she had invested in, Chang Ji cancelled his plan to become the mayor of Seoul because he really obeyed and respected Jin Young-kol. But after Do Jun encouraged him, Chang Ji finally ran for office in Seoul. He managed to be elected as the new mayor of Seoul. Do Jun took advantage of that moment by taking over the mega project that had been targeted by the Sunyang Corporation. Jin Young-kol was angry that the mega project that he had been targeting all this time was taken over by the Miracle Eye. One day, Do Jun finally told Jin Young-kol that he was the person who ran and managed the Miracle Investment. Jin Young-kol was furious when he found out because he didn't believe that his own grandson was the person who always ruined the Sunyang Corporation's plan. He asked Do Jun if he did it because his eldest son and grandson were the ones who were going to take over the Sunyang Corporation and not Do Jun. Following that, Jin Young-kol gave his eldest grandson Sung-jun the opportunity to exact revenge on Do Jun for what Do Jun did to the Sunyang Corporation. He wanted to see if Do Jun could defeat Sung-jun, who was more privileged than him. Sung-jun accepted the challenge that Jin Young-kol issued him, and he caused Do Jun to lose all investors who were willing to invest in the mega project of the new Seoul City. Mr. Oh and Do Jun were surprised and confused but suddenly, Do Jun had an idea. It was a simple idea but visionary enough at the time. Do Jun planned to put advertisements on various platforms on the internet, such as online games, streaming video websites, etc. His idea was common these days, but it was very rare back then. There was an online advertising company who was interested to work together with the Miracle Investment, but with one condition. They asked Do Jun to meet the owner of that company. Do Jun came to meet the owner of that company. Do Jun came to meet the. Apparently, Hyun-min was interested in Do Jun. She had keen insight and good judgment. She had a feeling that Do Jun would become the owner of the Sunyang Corporation in the future, so she tried to seduce Do Jun, but Do Jun didn't fall for her trap. He left Hyun-min's house immediately and went to meet Min Young, a woman whom he had a crush on. Do Jun's plan to put advertisements on the internet failed because he rejected Hyun-min's offer. Hyun Min was finally willing to marry Song Joon, and she believed that Song Joon would become the owner of the Soonyoung Corporation in the future because Song Joon managed to take over the mega project of New Seoul City from Do Joon. But, rather than bemoaning the fact that he had lost the mega project of New Seoul City to the Soonyoung Corporation, Do Joon had another brilliant idea. He suggested that the Daewon Corporation, the rival company of the Soonyoung Corporation, invest in the mega project of New Seoul City, claiming that if the Daewon Corporation invested in the mega project of New Seoul City, the Daewon Corporation would become the most powerful corporation in South Korea. At the same time, Jin Young-kol received bad health news. He was diagnosed with a disease that couldn't be cured at the time, and the doctor predicted that Jin Young-kol wouldn't live much longer. Following that, Jin Young-kol met with the president of the Daewon Corporation, where he learned about Do Joon's plan. The president of the Daewon Corporation stated that Do Joon reminded him of Jin Young-kol, and that Do Joon was a brilliant man who always saw a good opportunity. Finally, on the night of Song Joon's wedding, Jin Young-kol announced that instead of running and managing the Soonyoung Corporation, Song Joon would run and manage a subordinate company of the Soonyoung Corporation located in a remote area. He also stated that he was going to eliminate the system that he had created, in which his eldest son and grandson would be the presidents of the Soonyoung Corporation. Everyone who attended the wedding ceremony was surprised by what Jin Young-kol said. Song Joon was angry at Do Joon when he heard Jin Young-kol's decisions because he believed Jin Young-kol made those decisions because of Do Joon. After that, Jin Young-kol's wife confronted him about what he had said earlier, threatening that she would not remain silent if Jin Young-kol made those decisions because of Do Joon. Apparently, Do Joon's father was not Jin Young-kol's biological son. Jin Young-kol's children began to target the largest stakes in the Soonyoung Corporation after Jin Young-kol announced his decisions that night, and they decided to divide those stakes among 3 Jin Young-kol's children. Jin Young-kol's eldest son, Ji Young-ki, was the vice president of the Soonyoung Corporation at the time, and he had the authority to make decisions in that company. Jin Young-kol's second son, Ji Deong-ki, was the vice president of the Soonyoung Corporation's subordinate company, and Jin Young-kol's third child, Ji Hwang-young, was the owner of the Soonyoung Corporation's hotels and commercial centers. Jin Young-kol gave them the opportunity. To carry out their plan, Do Joon instructed Mr. Oh to reach an agreement with Ji Hwang-young. They approached Ji Hwang-young because they knew that the Soonyoung department stores she managed were heavily in debt. Ji Hwang-young eventually agreed to reach an agreement with the Miracle Investment, in which Mr. Oh agreed to give Ji Hwang-young a loan in exchange for the Miracle Investment holding 30% stakes in the Soonyoung department store. However, even though it appeared promising at first, Do Joon knew that the new technology company would go bankrupt soon. Ji Hwang-young initially made a large profit from investing in that new technology company, so she continued to invest more money in there, but after a few months, she finally suffered a great loss. She was unable to pay off her company's debt to other subordinate companies of the Soonyoung Corporation because of her loss. She was unable to pay off her debt to the Miracle Investment who had given her a loan. Because of this, the judiciary stated that Ji Hwang-young had committed embezzlement. Ji Hwang-young became frustrated and sought help from her husband, but her husband refused to help her because he was tired of Ji Hwang-young making bad decisions. He told Ji Hwang-young to talk to Jin Young-kol instead, and he claimed that Ji Hwang-young's brothers took advantage of Ji Hwang-young's poor situation to take all of her stakes in the Soonyoung Corporation. When Ji Hwang-young met Jin Young-kol, she could only cry and blame Do Joon because she believed Do Joon had trapped her. Jin Young-kol was enraged when he heard what his daughter said, and he no longer wanted to know about the stakes he had given to his children. After that, Do Joon came to meet Ji Hwang-young to make an agreement, saying that the Miracle Investment wanted to buy all of Ji Hwang-young's stakes because Ji Hwang-young was unable to pay off her debt to his company, but Ji Hwang-young insisted on keeping all of her stakes, so Do Joon decided to hold a board meeting of the Soonyoung department store to decide what to do with Ji Hwang-young, and Ji Hwang-young took her anger out on her personal ad. The Soonyoung department store board meeting finally began. At first, Ji Hwang-young's subordinates managed to sabotage Ji Hwang-young's personal assistant's testimony, but fortunately, Ji Hwang-young's personal assistant had given recording evidence to the attorney Min Young. Ji Hwang-young was going to lose all of her stakes in the Soonyoung department store if she was found guilty, and she was also going to be arrested for embezzling the company's money. Do Joon offered Ji Hwang-young another chance to sell all of her stock in Soonyoung department store to his company, claiming that it was the best option Ji Hwang-young had. Ji Hwang-young became irritated and asked Do Joon why he did this to her. Do Joon replied that he did it because of what Ji Hwang-young said to his mother when she hired her as her living mannequin, and with everything that had been done, Do Joon was able to take control of the Soonyoung department store. Jin Young-kol did nothing with what Do Joon had done. Instead, Jin Yong Kol's second son Ji Dong-ki planned to take over the Miracle Investment, as well as all stakes in the Sunyang Corporation owned by Do-jin. He told the judiciary that the Miracle Investment had embezzled some money from a technology company, and they had evidence that right before the company went bankrupt, the Miracle Investment sold all of their shares. Because of the judiciary's accusation, the investors who had invested in the Miracle Investment were forced to withdraw all of their investments in overseas companies. Mr. Oh and Do-jin were confused and overwhelmed by the situation. Ji Dong-ki attempted to take advantage of the situation. His company, the Sunyang Investment, offered to acquire the Miracle Investment that Do-jin owned. He also offered to buy all stakes in the Sunyang Corporation that Do-jin owned. Mr. Oh and Do-jin got into a fight. Not long after that, a terrible accident occurred. There was a terrorist attack on the Twin Towers in New York. Stock prices in the US plummeted as a result of that attack. Ji Dong-ki, who had invested in some overseas companies, suffered a great loss as a result of that attack. Meanwhile, the Miracle Investment managed to save themselves because they had taken all of their investments from the overseas companies. Mr. Oh suspected that Do-jin had also predicted that this accident would occur. A month later, Do-jin profited greatly from his decision because the stock market began to recover and stock prices increased significantly, whereas Ji Dong-ki suffered another significant loss as a result of his previous decision. Do-jin was able to turn things around when he offered to buy all of Ji Dong-ki's stakes in Sunyang Investment. At first, Ji Dong-ki ignored his offer, but after learning that many investors had pulled their investments from his company, he had no choice but to accept Do-jin's offer. After that, the drunken Ji Dong-ki entered Jin Yong Kol's room and blamed Jin Yong Kol for not doing anything about what Do-jin had done. The next day, Jin Yong Kol came to meet Do-jin. Inside his car, he warned him about his actions because he thought what Do-jin did to his uncle and aunt had gone too far. But Do-jin defended his actions by saying that he was just practicing what Jin Yong Kol had taught him. Jin Yong Kol taught him not to trust anyone. Jin Yong Kol laughed when he heard that. He thought Do-jin reminded him of himself. Jin Yong Kol laughed when he heard that. Then, Jin Yong Kol told Do-jin about his plan to choose Do-jin as the president of the Sunyang Corporation's main financial company. If Do-jin accepted Jin Yong Kol's offer, it would be easier for him to become the Sunyang Corporation's next president. However, Jin Yong Kol and Do-jin were involved in a car accident. Their car was hit by another car from a different direction. The Sunyang conglomerate family came to the hospital to learn about Jin Yong Kol and Do-jin's condition. Fortunately, Do-jin and Jin Yong Kol survived. They were saved by Do-jin's subordinate just before their car was hit by another car. But the doctor told the Sunyang conglomerate family that they couldn't see Jin Yong Kol because he was in a coma. Apparently, Jin Yong Kol only faked his coma because he wanted to find out who tried to sabotage his plan to choose Do-jin as the president of the Sunyang Corporation's main financial company. Do-jin assisted his grandfather in his investigation into the person who tried to kill them. Not long after that, Do-jin's subordinates discovered some evidence that led to the conclusion that the person who attempted to kill them was Song-jin. Jin Yong Kol was heartbroken when he learned of this, and he even suffered from dementia because he couldn't believe Song-jin could do such a thing to him. Do-jin realized that Jin Yong Kol's children should not be allowed to know that their father suffered from dementia. If they did, the stock prices of the Sunyang Corporation would plummet. It would also be dangerous for the Sunyang Corporation's upcoming board meeting. At that meeting, they would choose the next president of the Sunyang Corporation's main financial company. If Jin Yong Kol's children discovered that he had dementia, his chances of becoming the next president of the Sunyang Corporation's main financial company would be ruined. Song-jin and Ji Yong-ki had made their move to persuade the board not to choose Do-jin as the next president, instead suggesting that they choose Song-jin as the next president. Apparently, Song-jin had discovered that Jin Yong Kol suffered from dementia, and Song-jin thought that he would be elected as the next president. But when Jin Yong Kol arrived at the meeting, he appointed Do-jin to become the president of the Sun Group's main financial company. Jin Yong Kol apparently managed to attend that meeting thanks to the assistance of his personal doctor. He forced his personal doctor to give him some medicine that would temporarily alleviate the symptoms of his dementia. He didn't care if it would worsen his condition. When Jin Yong Kol and Do-jin entered the elevator, the symptoms of Jin Yong Kol's dementia returned. He behaved like a child again and wet his pants. Do-jin quickly cleaned his grandfather's urine. Following that, Do-jin's subordinates discovered additional evidence about the person who attempted to sabotage Jin Yong Kol's plan and kill Jin Yong Kol and Do-jin. Surprisingly, that person was not Song-jin, but Jin Yong Kol's own wife. Do-jin confronted and questioned his grandmother about it, and Jin Yong Kol's wife explained that she did it because she knew Jin Yong Kol was going to choose Do-jin as the next president of the Sunyang Corporation, and she didn't like his husband's decision because Do-jin's father was not their biological son. Jun threatened Jin Yong-kol's wife with jail unless she treated Jin Yong-kol well. However, after it was revealed that Jin Yong-kol suffered from dementia, stock prices in the Sunyang Corporation began to fall, beginning with Sunyang Motors, which was struggling with a financial crisis. Jun was obligated as the president of the Sunyang Corporation's main financial company to take care of the Sunyang Corporation's financial problem, which seemed impossible at first because Sunyang Motors almost went bankrupt, but Jin Yong-kol believed that Jun could take care of their company's financial problem. Jun decided to sponsor the South Korean national football team in the World Cup, which was hosted by South Korea. The board and the Sunyang conglomerate family disagreed with Jun's plan to sponsor their national team, believing that the South Korean national football team was incompetent to defeat other teams in the World Cup, but Jun insisted on investing in the South Korean national football team until they won the World Cup. Even though it seemed impossible at first, the South Korean national football team eventually advanced to the tournament semifinals, allowing Jun to make a large profit for his company and even break the record for the best car-selling company. Unfortunately, when Jun wanted to tell his grandfather about his accomplishments, he discovered that Jin Yong-kol had died. After that, Jin Yong-kol's children and grandchildren gathered in a room to hear the reading of Jin Yong-kol's will. The executor told them that each of them would receive valuable assets and a position in the Sunyang Corporation except Jun. Jun was surprised when he heard that. Mr. Oh was also surprised when he found out about that, and he asked if that will have been changed. Jun eventually became frustrated because he couldn't believe Jin Yong-kol hadn't given him anything, and he assumed Jin Yong-kol didn't consider him a member of the Sunyang conglomerate family. Not long after that, a meeting of the Sunyang Corporation's stakeholders was held to select the top stakeholder. The candidates were Jun and Jin Yong-kol's personal assistant. During the meeting, each member of the board received a mysterious message stating that Jun had abused Jin Yong-kol, and as proof, they had a CCTV footage that had been deleted by Jin Yong-kol's personal assistant Hang Ji, and Jun was the one who ordered Hang Ji to delete it. Hang Ji had apparently conspired with Song Jun against Jun, and the CCTV footage that had been deleted was only a record that contained an embarrassing moment of Jin Yong-kol, which Jun asked him to delete so that no one could see. Because of this, Hang Ji was chosen as the top stakeholder in the Sunyang Corporation, but after that, Hang Ji discovered that he had been betrayed by Song Jun, who only used him to take over the Sunyang Corporation. Jun finally found out why Jin Yong-kol didn't give him anything when Hang Ji gave Jin Yong-kol's another will to Jun. In that will, Jin Yong-kol stated that the reason he didn't give anything to Jun was because Jun was determined to take over the Sunyang Corporation after hearing Jin Yong-kol's will. His first step was to approach Ji Deong-ki, offering to sell the stakes that he still owned in the Sunyang Corporation, knowing that Jin Yong-kol's children were fighting to become the next president of the Sunyang Corporation and were seeking illegal funds. Ji Deong-ki was interested in Jun's offer, but Jun said that Ji Deong-ki must pay twice the price. Not long after that, the prices of the stakes Ji Deong-ki had purchased from Jun plummeted, leaving Ji Deong-ki unable to repay his debt to Jun. After that, Ji Deong-ki came to meet Jun. He offered to buy the stake in a coffee company that Jun had purchased from Ji Deong-ki, but Jun said that Ji Deong-ki had to pay twice the price of the stake that he owned. Despite this, Ji Deong-ki still bought that stake from Jun. Nobody knew what Jun was going to do with all of his money. A year had passed, and it was the anniversary of Jin Yong-kol's death. Apparently, Jun used his money to buy stakes in the Sunyang Corporation, and as a result, he became the Sunyang Corporation's largest shareholder. Jun had to clear his name from the accusation of abusing Jin Yong-kol first. He and Mr. Oh devised a crazy plan. Jun made himself being accused of embezzling the company's money. As a result, he was arrested by the police. Apparently, it was only Jun's plan to trap Ji Deong-ki and Ji Deong-ki. Jun soon became the center of attention in South Korea because he revealed about the tax evasion in TH. However, when Jun was about to attend his inauguration ceremony as the next president of the Sunyang Corporation, a truck suddenly hit his car from behind, killing him instantly. Suddenly, Jun returned to the future, waking up not long after Hyun-woo was murdered by the hitmen hired by the Sunyang conglomerate family. Apparently, Hyun-woo was still alive, only in coma all this time. Hyun-woo was confused with E. Not long after that, the attorney Min Young came to his room, told him about his situation, and asked him to be a witness to the Sunyang Corporation's crime. When Hyun-woo returned to South Korea, he was immediately pursued by the Sunyang Corporation. Apparently, the Sunyang Corporation still targeted him and wanted to kill him. Hyun-woo realized that 20 years had passed since Jun died in the car accident. He planned to exact revenge on the Sunyang Corporation. Hyun-woo looked for Mr. Oh. He discovered that Mr. O resigned from his company as soon as Du Jun died. He planned to ask Mr. O to sue the. Du Jun managed to defeat the Sunyang conglomerate family in court with the help of Mr. O and Min Yang. At first, with the Sunyang conglomerate family's huge influence, it appeared that Song Jun would win the case of Du Jun's attempted murder in Turkey. However, Du Jun did not sue the Sunyang conglomerate family for his attempted murder in Turkey. Rather, he sued them for Du Jun's murder 20 years ago. From his evidence, it was revealed that the person who murdered Du Jun was Jin Yang Kole's eldest son Ji Yang Ki. As a result, Song Jun was unable to become president of the Sunyang Corporation. Following that case, the Sunyang conglomerate family was forced to relinquish their positions in the Sunyang Corporation. Hyan Wu or Du Jun finally managed to exact revenge on the Sunyang conglomerate family. Hyan Wu and Mr. O began to work together again to build their own company.